Welcome back to the show. I am Josh Blender, and we are going to break down the 2025 draft, how it compared to the 2024 NFL draft. Thank you so much for watching and hope you enjoy. So, in the 2025 draft, we were very much aware that there was not a whole lot of what people call the blue chippers, the superstar type talents. We knew about Travis Hunter being a two-way type of guy, could be a superstar on both sides of the football, and then Abdul Carter. And that was it. You could draw a line, and that was where it ended. The Tennessee Titans, we can pretty much guarantee you, were sitting there thinking, man, we're going to miss out on Hunter and Abdul Carter, but we really want the quarterback of the future. So without those two, we start looking at the selections that were made throughout the first round at the back half and comparing that to 2024, my goodness, were there huge discrepancies between them. In the 2024 draft, that was one of the best drafts in recent memory. And we can count 8 superstar caliber players from it. I'll just list off the top of my head. Caleb Williams would go number 1 in just about every draft. Jayden Daniels could go number 1 in pretty much all of the drafts. Drake Maye would be going number 1. And then we start talking about quarterbacks that went a little bit deeper. Michael Penix Jr. went at pick number 8. We saw J.J. McCarthy go at pick number 10. Bo Nix going at pick 12. Those back three, a lot of people consider all of them to be at the same level or to be a little bit superior to what Cam Ward is. That's not a knock on Cam Ward, but Penix, J.J. McCarthy, a national champion, and Bo Nix setting a record for the most starts until Gabriel beat him in the previous season. You can't compare them in the terms of the success. You can just say that they had different careers, and if they ended up going in this draft, which they couldn't, it would have certainly been interesting who would have been made out to be taken higher. And then that's not to talk about the talent. It's possible with a Marvin Harrison Jr., a Malik Neighbors, and a Rome Odunze. Those would typically be your wide receiver number ones in just about any other year. And so if you take the number 1 prototypical just whiteout guy, Hunter played both ways. Last year, Odunze got taken 9th overall. We're making that comparison. Marvin, would he have been taken over a Travis Hunter type of player? And then there's the left tackle, Joe Alt, and then the tight end, Brock Bowers. So 3 stud quarterbacks that would be number 1 selections, a left tackle and Joe Alt, a tight end and Brock Bowers, and then 3 just fundamental cornerstone. That's going to be your wide receiver for the next 5 years plus, and looking at that guy being your number 1 target. Whereas this year, immediately after pick number 3, okay, Will Campbell, there was a ton of discussion about whether even Will Campbell would go in the top 5. Would he maybe sneak a little bit later? So you can see the comparison there. And we talk about pick number 5 with Mason Graham. What would he compare to if we were looking at the 2024 NFL draft? You would really have to go down to about pick number 16, and his stock got inflated a little bit in Byron Murphy, who went there after Latu of UCLA, the first defensive player taken in that draft. And then we start to compare the two players. I talk about inflated because Murphy played on a team that went to the college football playoff semifinals, and then we saw Dallas Turner. So as far as looking at a guy like Dallas Turner, with Dallas Turner, if he were in the 2025 draft, where would he have gone? Would he have been in consideration with Abdul Carter? Certainly the traits are about the same, the athleticism. Carter was dealing with the shin splints or the foot, a couple of broken bones in his feet that he had to deal with, not shin splints, but he had some broken bones that he had to deal with and didn't participate in the combine, whereas Dallas Turner was full speed right ahead, a Jared Verse type of player where he had a number of people wanting to take him a little bit earlier, and now he goes on to be one of the best edge type players in the National Football League potentially in the future type of freak. So in this year, you'd compare that to Mike Green. Mike Green wound up dropping all the way into the second round, an older player type of guy, being 23, 24 years old, and going the route of transferring. We knew Jared Verse had played with Michigan State. Mike Green ended up staying with Marshall his entire career. So there is that comparison. A little bit later on, we saw Brian Thomas taken 23rd overall. And now we can compare a little bit. Brian Thomas, 23. Matthew Golden at 23, the same wide receiver. And that is where I would sort of match the caliber of talent of when this begins to start to lever in the favor of what the 2025 draft provided. In the round, like day 2 type of picks, the second round was far superior in the 2025 NFL draft comparatively to 2024. A player like Will Johnson was talked about at one point at the back half of the season. He ends up locking up Washington and Natty, a pick against Marvin Harrison Jr. in the game. He could have been in the talks of being a top 3, top 5 pick, and no one would have blinked at the end of the 2023 season. But he ends up dropping to pick number 47? Pick number 47. You just don't see that type of drop. There's a guy like Xavier Watts, who a lot of people were deciding he wasn't worth a selection with, dropping to pick number 96. Mike Green, who was a top 20 prospect in this thing, dropping to pick number 59 by the Baltimore Ravens. You can see all of that first round talent. Travion Henderson, Quinshawn Judkins dropping to the earlier parts of day 2, where the Patriots took Henderson at 39, the Browns taking Judkins at pick 36. Those running backs in typical drafts are going to be competing for first round spots, and that's because the two guys split time at Ohio State. They ended up impacting each other's draft stock, because when the other guy gets carries, the other guy is going to be on the bench. We start looking at the offensive lineman. I mentioned Joe Alt. I'm not trying to compare players and tear one down or even build up another one. We're just looking at overall. Joe Alt was considered, you take this guy, he is going to be your focal point at left tackle. There were no talks about arm length, and I am not an NFL scout. Watch the film and I come up with my own breakdowns, but there was no talks about Joe Alt or Latham or Fashanu when they took Olu over Brock Bowers. Olu Fashanu over Brock Bowers. And you don't think that had to have been a pretty good offensive line prospect for them to decide to make that move in the back half? The day 3, it is always really tricky because we still are not able to exactly pan out what those players will become. But overall, this was truly a fascinating draft season for the past 2 months to look at. Where is this thing going to break, and where is this going to provide a little bit more depth than what that other draft was? And it was, frankly, right at the start of day 2, and we saw a bit of the runs on those Ohio State running backs. Because beside from that, that 2025, we talk about 8 players in the top 12 being superstars. We didn't talk about how special that draft was enough. People were complaining about this particular one. Look, everyone tries to watch the first round, but that was honestly not the round to be paying attention to. It was in day 2, and those picks, 33 all the way to 102 for what the selections were made. That is where your starters of the future are going to come. Whether or not some guys will turn out to be as good as we might have thought they were, again, remains to be seen. But overall, this was a very fun draft season, and appreciate you so much for sticking around and watching this. Certainly would love to hear what you have to say in the comments in that comparison. Let me know where you agree, where you disagree with what I'm saying here. Probably going to be a lot of agreement talking about the quarterbacks and the wide receiver differentials, as well as the defensive spot, as this was a very heavy defensive line, offensive line a little bit further back in the draft from about pick 20 to pick 70. But overall, was a lot of fun. So thank you so much, and we will catch you next time with another episode with Blitz with Blender.